Go.
Hey, all right, ladies and gentlemen, it is another episode of Two Non-Critics with I am Non Critic Will, and this is
Oh, sorry, I jumped in too early. I'm non-critic Dustin. I'm used to doing the intros, so I jumped in too early. Anyway,
excuse me, everybody. I said non-critic. I just shortened it up. Non-critic Will. And like non-critic Dustin always says, we are two good friends, two best friends that grew up together. We have many different tastes on movies. So every week we watch a new movie that the other one has not seen, and we critique about it. So for this week, I have chosen the movie for non-critic Dustin to watch, and it's called Oldboy. The 2003 film. It's a Korean film. They recently did a remake for 2013, the American version, but I'm going to the original first. So I will have non-critic Dustin explain or summarize the movie of Oldboy. Dustin?
All right, brief summarization of Oldboy is a drunken loudmouth buffoon gets locked into a room for 15 years, never knows why, and then is seemingly, for no apparent reason, released, and he has to go on a mission of revenge and to solve the mystery as to why he was locked up. And that's essentially what the film is. It's this man going on this trippy revenge kick where he doesn't know who to trust, everyone's against him, and he just can't figure out why this happened to him. He has an ally, this sushi chef woman, who is trying to help him out, and they have a bond throughout the film.
And also his best friend that he knew since high school or whatnot.
Oh yeah, the guy who owns the internet cafe. And,
yes.
And they do their best to help him out. He starts to figure out things about how it ties into his past, and at first the only clue he has is that he was locked up because he talks too much.
Yeah.
So that's about as much as I'll say. I'm assuming, like I said, pretty much the only people who watch the show are people we know. Maybe the occasional straggler will come by, but chances are you've probably seen the film. But just in case you haven't, I won't go into too much more detail. But this is a movie that I first became aware of it maybe in 2007-ish, when a friend of mine actually hosted a screening at college that I was not aware of. He hosted a screening of it for his film club, and I had never heard of it, and I was like, what is this movie? And he told me all about it. He told me like every little detail practically. And I was like, oh, okay, that sounds interesting. But then I heard from people who were at the screening that they didn't like the movie, they thought it was boring, and then as time went on, I occasionally heard people saying, like, dude, you gotta watch this movie Oldboy, it's incredible, it's amazing, you have to watch it, it's like nothing I've ever seen. Like, I remember our friend Jim spoke very highly of it, you spoke very highly of it, our friend Amy spoke very highly of it to me, so it came to a point where I just refused to watch it, because it had been, first of all, I knew the major twists in the film, and secondly, it had been built up to me so much, there's no way it could live up to that. And I have to say, that statement is true. It's a very, very well-made film. It's a very unconventional film, which I appreciated. But it didn't really grab me the way I was hoping it would. But that being said, had I gone into that film with maybe one or two people saying, like, I think you'll like this, and sort of gone down this rabbit hole of deception and bizarreness with this character, I think I would have been much more invested. Knowing what I knew about it, I had a very hard time connecting with it.
Yeah.
What was it like when you first saw it? What did you... Because you went into it the way I wish I'd gone into it.
Well, see, I was introduced to the movie by another one of my good friends. His name is John. he was the one that told me about Oldboy, and sat down, watched it on Netflix, and I was shocked and amazed because I didn't hear anything about it until John told me a little bit of it. You know what? He didn't even tell me about it. He just said, there's this movie that you got to watch. It's called Oldboy, and it's amazing. And that's it. That's it. But because of the fact that he's another one of my best friends, I took it into account. Like, oh shit, well, if he likes it, I'm probably gonna like it because we have sort of the same taste, just like mine and non-critic Dustin taste. We have different tastes, but we kind of like the same shit too. So when he told me about it, I watched it, and everything leading up to the ending, to the big shocker, it really screwed me up. Like, it's one of those where you're just like, you have that facial expression, you're like, like you're like, oh shit, didn't expect that. I wish that non-critic Dustin could have seen it in that light instead of everybody telling him already what the ending is going to be, because I feel that he would have gotten more out of it.
I will say one thing. There's one aspect to the ending that they didn't tell me. Or if they did, I completely forgot. The big shocker ending, I knew. Which made some scenes kind of boring in the first maybe 2/3 of the movie.
Yeah.
Because that's what I noticed. Throughout the film, I was actually very hard to watch it in one sitting. I had to, I kept pausing it to go do other things because I was like, I know where this is going. But the motivations of the antagonist in this film, I guess you could call him a villain. The motivation, I was not aware of that part of it. So when it got to the final 30 minutes of the film, that's when I started to really get invested because I was learning why this person did this. And he was going into explicit detail. And I thought, okay, well, there you go. I was more invested because I wasn't aware of that part.
Yeah.
So had I not known, we should probably stop saying there's a big twist because now people are going to watch it expecting that. But, I mean, had I not known the impact that this film had on many people, I probably would have had a similar reaction to yourself. Now, when you say amazing, what about it amazed you?
Well, okay, for me, what amazed me was everything that was leading up to the big surprise. I mean, of course, I'm not trying to spoil the ending, but everything that led up to the big surprise, it was worth it. Because for me, honestly, it's something that I did not suspect in a million years. And it's one of those that it's like a jaw dropper, like, oh shit. It's kind of like, if I want a reference to another movie, it's kind of like the very first Saw, when the whole time the actual killer, Jigsaw, or technically not a killer, but just a kidnapper, he was in the middle of the floor the whole damn time. You thought it was actually a dead body, but it was actually him the whole time. It's something like that where your jaw just drops because you couldn't believe that was it the whole time. Oh, so why did...
No, go ahead.
Sorry. It was just like, oh, so why... That's why it happened? That's why this transpired? It was something that you wouldn't think of in a million years. So, yeah, what do you have to say?
No, with the Saw, just to touch on that briefly, the first Saw is the only... I've seen the first 4 of those films. I only liked one of them because it was so silly. And that was the third one. But I remember I saw most of the first one, and somebody said I knew about the ending of that one as well. And I remember people seem to talk about that movie like there's 2 camps. There's people like you who never suspected a thing. And then there are some people like our friend Jim who claimed that even without seeing the film, he knew the ending because somebody was telling him about it. And he goes, so there's this dead body there? Like, they never mention it really. They never really go into detail about how that body got there. You're
Yeah.
like, yeah, he's like, oh, that's him. That's the killer. I'm like, yeah, okay, maybe. But I just wanted to touch on that because with a film like, because Oldboy is kind of the same way. I do hear people when I'm talking about the ending, and I have heard some people say they figured it out, which is kind of strange. I don't know if you figured that out or not.
Yeah.
But like I said, I can't tell if it's because I knew where it was going, but there are certain scenes in the film that I could tell were intended to have a kind of emotional impact that did nothing for me. Like there's a scene, this is not a spoiler, but there's a scene where he has to fight a shit ton of guys, and he's
Yeah.
got nothing but a hammer.
Yeah.
I liked that that scene was not this big choreographed like John Woo type of scene. I like that it was
Yeah.
just kind of a direct. He seemed like a real guy in a fight with a bunch of real guys. But other than that, I felt nothing for the character. I felt nothing for what was happening. I did not care. How did you, when you're watching a film and you're watching him take these steps to unsolve the mystery, were you engaged emotionally?
I would say for me, I was definitely engaged. Number one, um, unlike your experience, I didn't know shit about it. I just was told by one of my friends, "Oh, you gotta watch this. It's a crazy movie." That's all I heard. I didn't hear nothing about the ending, the plot, or anything. So I was more engaged into the movie. And then, yes, I've definitely felt like I I uh I felt touched. I felt touched with the character because if I was locked up in a room for 15 damn years, not knowing why, it would make me crazy. And I would, once I get out, I'm going to try to figure out who did this to me and why. So yeah, I was definitely engaged into the movie and just want, and like, just like the main character's name is Odaisu. Just like Odaisu, I would go to the world's end to figure out why this was done to me. What happened? I had a family. I was kidnapped, and I didn't see my family. Oh yeah. Also, whoever's watching this, yeah, the main character, he had a family, and he was taken away from his family, his wife and child. He was having some domestic issues with his wife, but it wasn't something crucial where he was getting a divorce or anything. He just had the domestic issues, and he was taken away from his wife and his daughter. Actually, one of the very beginning scene when he gets kidnapped, his daughter's present, because it was going to be his daughter's third birthday. His daughter's present is just left on the street. It's a rainy night, and his daughter's present is left on the street. It's these angel wings. They don't really explain. They don't really go in detail how he's actually kidnapped. It's one of those where it's just illusion. Um, it's raining. Some other person tries to talk to him with an umbrella, and all you see is the top of the umbrella. And then all of a sudden, once the person goes on the umbrella disappears, he's gone. So you don't know exactly what the hell happened. You're just, oh shit, he got he got kidnapped, and he wakes up in his room.
Yeah, that was another kind of issue I had. This is why upon reflection, this is why I felt I could not relate to the character. Yes, was I in that situation, I probably would have done everything he did for the most part.
Yeah,
But what I mean by identifying with the character is I didn't know anything about him before he was put in the room except what was mentioned. Like I
yeah,
wasn't shown what his relationship was like with his daughter. Obviously, he loved his daughter, and
yeah,
obviously, what the situation that was going on really fucked with his head, which is why he's a drunken moron at the
yeah,
beginning of the film. But I felt like had we seen something
yeah,
where he interacts, I mean, he calls her and he's all like, he's crying and stuff. But there's that. But I felt like I didn't know enough about him before he was put in the room to care. Now that's okay in some cases. Had the film begun with him waking up in that trunk, maybe, and it's already been 15 years, and he's trying to figure out where he's been, and then he starts to very quickly remembers, oh, I've been locked in this room for 15 years.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh man, that's messed up. And then you go with him and you start to discover about his past and you start unraveling all that shit at once. I think I would have been more engaged.
Yeah.
But because we see a little bit of him beforehand,
yeah.
and then we see a montage of what life was like in that room, and then we see him kicked out of that room, I couldn't get engaged because it felt like the movie kept starting.
Well,
the film started when he's on the roof, then it went back, and it started with him being drunk, and then it felt like it was starting again when he wakes up in the trunk, and I felt like I couldn't. It took a while to say this is the story.
Well, what was the difference, the change? I mean, for me, with what you just said, is that for me, it was going through his whole psychological torment, his psychological despair when he was in that room for 15 years straight, having the same meal every damn day for 15 years, and then eventually coming to a point where he's marking himself like he was he had a needle and he was actually stitching a line in his hand for every year that he was there, going through scraping the cement, the brick wall each day until it gets to a point where he can possibly climb out of he can go through the wall to like feel what's outside. He took years to do that. He trained, quote unquote, through watching TV, through watching boxing, through watching martial arts movies or whatnot. It showed that he tried to overcome a bad situation. The torment that he was going through. Even there's this one particular scene where every day he gets dumplings. He gets they give him these dumplings every day with chopsticks, with a pair of chopsticks. One day he gets 3 chopsticks, and all he can do is wonder what the next guy is doing next door to him with only 1 chopstick, because they screwed up, they fucked up. So that whole psychological was what I was into. You know, not having no contact with anybody, even sexually. Like he's watching some aerobics workout TV show, and he starts to masturbate because like that's the only type of intimacy or contact he can have. You know, it's very depressing. It's very stressful. It's very pathetic, but that's the only thing he can rely on for some type of pleasure. And then it gets to a point where he is so aggravated, so stressed out that not just once, but a few times, he tries to break the glass in the bathroom, in the mirror, and slit his wrist because he's just tired of life. So it definitely showed the struggle for me. It definitely showed the struggle that he had while he was in that room, in the same room for 15 years, doing the same thing over and over and over again. That's the definition of insanity. Expecting to do the same thing. You're doing the same thing over and over, but you're expecting a change.
Well, no, I completely agree with you, and they did demonstrate that. I think my problem was, well, it wasn't that they didn't effectively show what he was going through, because they did. My problem was structurally.
Yeah.
I think that they expected you, at least myself, maybe. I mean, I can't. All right, now I take that statement back. I never want to say I know what the filmmakers expected, because I don't. But it seems like a montage like that, where you're saying what he's doing every day for 15 years, that early in the film felt like poor structure, because I felt like it was too early for me to give a shit about this guy. had you done that maybe a little bit later, when maybe he's talking to that woman and he's sort of explaining what life was like in there and everything, maybe then when I got to know him a little bit more, and I'd be like, oh my God, that's awful. I mean, it's awful anyway, but it was more of me. It wasn't when I was watching that scene. I'm like, that's awful. It was like me making a statement to myself, like that's awful. Like if somebody tells you like something like a news headline, like, hey, I just read this in the news, and you're like, oh, that's awful, but you're not really engaged. In this case, having that so up front in the start of the film meant I wasn't engaged enough to care. Had that, like I said, had that been a little bit later on in the film, and he's like, yo, let me tell you how fucked up this was, and then I see it and I'm like, oh my God. Like no wonder you're crazy, but it was just a structure problem.
I mean, for me, I felt the exact opposite. Like I felt as he was going through it, I felt for him more. I felt for the character more because I'm just like, you made an interesting point about, maybe if they told it like, oh man, let me tell you how fucked up this was, what I went through. But for me to see him going through that in the present and still wondering in my head, just as the character is wondering, why the fuck am I put through this? What did I do? What exactly did I do to be put in this situation?
Right.
That was making me wonder. And for him to be stuck there for 15 years, going through every year, seeing a new presidency, whatever wars were breaking out, whatever political things were transpiring, and he can only see that through a TV screen and have nothing else to do with the outside world, on top of the fact that everybody thought that he was a murderer. It's the beginning of the movie, so I'm not spoiling. I'm not trying to spoil shit, but it's the beginning of the movie. Everybody thought that he was a murderer, that he supposedly killed his own wife and abandoned his daughter, whatever the case was, or kidnapped his daughter. So, on top of being locked in a room for 15 years, you're blamed for killing your own wife or ex-wife and kidnapping your daughter, when that's the exact opposite of everything that you've been going through. You just have a domestic violence dispute with your significant other. That really has to take a toll on you, because it's not only that you're locked up for 15 years you don't know, but then you're being accused for killing your wife. You're being accused of killing your wife and treating your own daughter like shit.
Right. Well, okay, let me bring these two things up as an example. This movie, without a doubt, and they reference it in the film, is a modern Korean version of The Count of Monte Cristo. So,
okay.
The Count of Monte Cristo, very old story. I actually really, really love that story. Gets put in prison wrongfully for all these years. He comes back, posed as a count, and he gets revenge, right?
Yeah.
And with that, you experience time with him, with his family, so you know him. You know his relationship with his family. You know him personally. So when this terrible thing happens to him, you're experiencing it with him because you, like I said, you know him. And then so when he's getting revenge, you feel for him. Now, another example, Sweeney Todd. Sweeney Todd is also the Count of Monte Cristo. In Sweeney Todd, you meet Sweeney Todd after all that shit has happened. So you meet him when he's setting up his barber shop and when he's already planned to get revenge. And you learn more about him later on. And then when you finally learn what happened, you're like, that's fucked up. Like, no wonder you're nuts.
Yeah.
So you can, at least for me, you can effectively tell that story of what happened to him in that room in real time. But without giving us that time to sort of get to know the character, for me at least, I mean, for you watch movies entirely different than I do, but for me at least, I had trouble getting into the film because I didn't know him. I feel like you watched the movie and you said, what if that was me? I watched the film and I said, "That's not me."
And I think
it would suck if I was in that situation, but I'm not.
But I think a big difference with that, with me saying, "What if that was me?" and you not, was because of the fact that everybody and their mom told you something about it, and they told you the ending. Oh, like, oh, this is what's going to happen. Oh, that's fucked up. What happened between I didn't hear anything about it, so I came with a straight open mind. Not saying that you didn't come with an open mind, but yours was more closed than mine because everybody already told you, oh, well, this is what happens at the end. This is what does it.
Yeah, I think mine was just more aware. Because, I mean, I went into it having no expectations other than what I knew of the film already. But I think the reason I say you watched it and said, what if that was me, is because maybe we should do a show on this, but our very heated discussion on Man of Steel. I loathe that film. You love that film. And now that I know that they're basically half the audience who saw it hated it and half the audience who saw it loved it, I feel a little bit better. But, when you and I were talking about it, I was telling you, I was like, Superman has no character in this movie. Clark Kent is not a character. He's nothing. He's just a thing that goes through the motions of the story because the script dictates it, and I couldn't get involved. And you said to me, you're like, I put myself in his shoes. I tried to say, what if that was me? And so that's what I mean, is when I experience a story, I want to relate to the character based on who they are, not what if I was in that situation. And it's fine. Everybody watches movies differently. I'm not saying my way's right, your way's wrong, but that's how we connect with movies. And that was the same problem I had with Man of Steel, was the structure. Remember the scene when he's flying for the first time? I just sat there watching it like this. And if you look on YouTube, there's that video of that 2 or 3 year old boy watching that scene and going, wow, and he's loving it. And I wish I was like him, but I was like, there's no character here, so I don't care that he's flying. And I love Superman, but I just like, whatever. But you saw it, and you were like, this is one of my favorite heroes. This is, what if I was in that situation, and you were engaged? And I think I almost wish I watched movies that way, because I may have more fun, maybe. I don't know. Not that I love movies.
I mean, this is just me personally. Like, every movie that I watch, I try to take into account that the main character, if I were in that situation, what would I do? Would I do the same thing that he or she is doing? Would I have the same feelings, the same emotion, the same aspirations to change? And I try to place myself in that situation. And if I can place myself in that situation, then I like the movie. If I can't, then I'm just like, yeah, it's kind of a piece of shit. Now, the whole thing with Man of Steel, it was very different. It was we're going a whole different topic of a new movie.
Don't worry, we'll get back to Oldboy, but hold on.
We'll get back to
touch on Man of Steel. We should do it on Man of Steel.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll get back to Oldboy, but just Man of Steel, just real quick. Man of Steel, for me, it felt like the more dark and gritty side of Superman. I see your face, but the reason why I say dark and gritty, because it's unconventional to the Superman you see. Oh, he's perfect, America, justice, right for all men. Like, this more was of him being a person that's hiding, that's not trying to show himself to the world, that's trying to be just trying to be another face in the crowd, and due to circumstances that are bringing him beyond his comfort zone, he has to take action and help people, because his parents, Jonathan and Martha, they taught him to always be responsible, with this power. It's kind of like the whole Peter Parker complex with great power comes great responsibility. It's kind of the same thing that Jonathan and Martha installed in him. But they were just more secretive about it. They were just like, well, do what you have to do to help, but if it comes to the fucking CIA, FBI, the news, watch out, don't do shit. There's actually a specific scene where Jonathan is just like, there's a school bus that drives off the bridge in Clark's Pass. Clark actually saves the bus. He saves the bus from everybody drowning, including Lana Lang. And one of the parents actually listened to their son saying, "Oh, Clark saved the bus." First off, as a parent, who the hell believes that a 10-year-old boy pushes a bus out of a lake? Who believes that? But this mother happened to, and she goes to the Clark's residence and speaks to them like, "Oh, well, my son saw Clark and he did this and did that." So Jonathan comes out and speaks to Clark and tells him like, you gotta watch out, you gotta keep your secret safe, even if
maybe
it means
you should have let the children die.
Yeah. Like Clark specifically says, "What should I have done? Let them die?" And very unconventional, Jonathan says, "Maybe."
Yeah. Okay. That doesn't sound like
Really?
with great power comes great responsibility. That sounds like with great power means don't tell anybody, don't do anything with it. I mean, don't tell anybody makes sense. I mean, Smallville told that story over 10 years and did it very well. This film managed to make Jonathan Kent look like the biggest douchebag. Maybe you should have let all those children die, Clark. I mean, you would have been the lone survivor, and people would be like, "How did you survive? Why couldn't you try to help anybody?" And he'd be like, "Oh." Anyway, back. Well, like I said, maybe we should do a show on Man of Steel, but at this point, it's been talked to death. But anyway, back to Oldboy. I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
Well, actually, before I get there, I want to say a few things I did like about the film.
Okay.
I thought all of the performances were really, really, really interesting. That's one thing I always like about when we watch a film like foreign cinema. I say foreign, that's what it's called. But I always feel like maybe it's because of I'm used to like American actors or something like that, or at least British actors. It seems like in Asian films or even in like or even maybe a French film, the actors always make very interesting choices, and I think this actor, the actor who plays Odai-Soo, made some very strange performance choices that I found very interesting. And also, I thought the villain was very interesting. I thought his motivation, obviously his motivations, I wasn't aware of beforehand, and they grabbed me. I also just thought how he kept taking a shower in that glass shower with people standing around. I was like, that's strange.
He didn't give a shit.
Yeah. And so I liked him. Like I found that character to be very. I keep saying engaging, but that's really all I can say. And
in fact,
go ahead.
I don't mean to cut you off. I think actually, for me, I think he was actually one of the best characters in the movie. Actually, the antagonist. He was one of the best characters in the movie.
I mean, This is one of those perfect examples of a villain the villain. A good villain is never truly the villain. A true, very great villain is the kind of villain who thinks they're the good guy. And in this aspect, I felt like you could almost empathize with the guy. You would never take it to that level that he does, but when you realize his motivations, you're like, oh wow, it's extreme, but I can kind of see what he's doing, and you can sort of empathize with him in a really twisted way. And so that was interesting. And I also really like the use of music in the film. I like that it went from this sort of atmospheric techno music to classical music at certain times. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
And also, I was happy that it wasn't like an action movie. There's fighting in it, and there's even like a wire scene where you can tell somebody he gets picked up by wires and thrown.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it was very sparingly used, and it wasn't over
Yeah.
the top, and it felt natural in that world. I think so. I enjoyed that as well.
But you know, I'm pretty sure that a lot of people have heard this movie. Um, I'm pretty sure a lot of people just have heard the ending, like, "Oh, he does da da da, and he does this." So it spoils it. It spoils it because I feel for me everything that led up to the ending was what made the movie great for me. Is because I didn't expect that. I didn't expect that. So once you just outright tell me, "Oh, this is what happens at the end," I know what to expect. And I'm just like, "Oh, well, fuck, never,
Yeah, there's
never
some
mind."
movies. There's some movies where it doesn't matter if you know the ending because the journey is equally as captivating as the ending. But then there are some movies where, like, let's say Cabin in the Woods, for example, is a movie where people are like,
Uh
don't
huh.
tell anybody the ending, don't tell anybody the ending. That film is structured to be building up to this ending. So if you
Yeah.
know it, it ruins the storytelling. I mean, you can watch
Yeah.
the movie again and again and again because the characters are interesting. But so, but with a film like this, or even say a murder mystery story, something like that, when you know the ending, it dampens the adventure. But I wanted
Yeah.
to ask you about the remake because you've seen the remake,
Yep.
and I've heard bad things about it. I just don't really have any interest in seeing it anyway. But if anybody's watching this is interested in the remake, what do you think of the remake?
The remake, for me, it wasn't as strong as you know what. Anything actually with a remake for me is not as strong as the original because you're already expecting you already know what's going to happen. You're already expecting it unless they're going to do a dramatic change. Usually with remakes, they do a subtle change, but they still kind of stick with the same concept, the same story. So with the remake of Oldboy, as I said, they do little subtle changes that you're just like, oh, okay, well, like for instance, not even to spoil the movie, but for instance, the original Old Boy, the Korean film that we were critiquing about, is from 2003, and the main character Odai Soo, he's locked up for 15 years. In the remake 2013, the main character's name is Joe, and he's locked up for 20 years. Little subtle changes like that. It shouldn't be that big of a change, but depending on what the character is going through, what he has to go through after he gets out, it will change the whole concept. So it's just little subtle things like that. I didn't really take much consideration. I'm like, oh, okay, 15. I mean 20 instead of 15. Okay, whatever, fine, that's fine. But there are certain things in the remake that changes the whole concept of why uh, why the antagonist was trying to get so-called revenge on the main character, quote unquote. So
Uh, and this might be hard to say, but as a film on its own, would you say it was a good film?
on the film on its own, I would say it's a good film. Like if I never seen the 2003 version, I would still say it's a good film. Not great, not spectacular, but it's just another film that I don't mind watching. It's a good film.
All right.
Um, but because of the fact that I've seen the first one and saw the first one for me was so shocking, and when I say shocking, I mean because of the very ending when you find out the truth. If you have never heard anything about it and you watch that film, for me, I feel that any viewer would be satisfied. because nobody is telling you, oh, this is what happens or this is what happens. Your imagination is just going to run wild until you get the truth out. And that's what makes it more interesting, because you're just like, oh man, this what? Like, your mind's just like, oh shit.
So I was just going to say, it sounds like your viewing of the remake is similar to my viewing of the original. Because you've seen the remake, so you know what's coming for the most part in the remake, so you probably weren't as into it as you would have been.
No, I wasn't. You know what? The only thing that I was actually into was, honestly, what changes are they going to make with the remake? That's the only thing I was interested in. Like, okay, are they going to stick true to the original film? Which they never do. So I'm just like, okay, what changes are going to be made so it would look good for Hollywood standards?
You know what I think would have been, I mean, I can't say because I didn't see the film, but when you remake a movie, and I've been saying this for a long time, when you remake a movie, you should use the original concept as a jumping off point.
Yeah.
And tell a completely different story, I think. But when you tell the same story, but you alter it in certain ways that either are senseless. I mean, changing it to 20 years, okay, whatever. But some of the changes you told me about, it does seem like, except for the ending, which you told me.
Yeah.
And I told you I kind of, and we're not talking about the big shocking ending. We're talking about the very, very end. That I actually preferred that one. But I would be interested in seeing the remake had they done something where they're like, look, we took this concept of a man who's been locked up in a room for a number of years and doesn't know why, and he tries to figure it out, and they told a completely different story with it. I think that would have been enough for me to want to see it. But based on what you told me, making small changes which sort of make the concept not work quite as well, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
I guess we've wrung this discussion dry. One of our better discussions, I think. And we got a little Man of Steel on there, which is good.
Yeah, that will be another discussion for another.
Oh, man, that'd be like a 2-hour-long video of us just talking over each other. But
that'll be a 2-hour-long video of Dustin hating the shit out of it, and me just, it was okay movie.
End with me breaking my e-cigarette in half and just spilling acid all over the place. No!
Fuck this movie!
But you want to do the send-off this time?
Yeah. Well, first off, Dustin, do you have any last comments on the movie?
Yeah, see it. If you haven't already, chances are most people have seen it by now. If you have Netflix, you've probably come across it. And so, yeah, go ahead and watch it. It's worth watching, even if you know how it's going to end. And because, like I said, I didn't know everything about the ending. So, but it's a well-made movie. There you go. Next week, I wanted to mention. I know I shouldn't announce these because we don't do it, but hopefully next week we'll be talking about. Next Friday, we'll be talking about one of my personal favorite movies that I don't think gets enough attention, which is the sci-fi miniseries Frank Herbert's Dune.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, before he continues, I'm just going to tell you, as far as Dune is concerned, this is where we are both clearly different, because I do remember, I remember the actual day when Dune came on Sci-Fi Channel when I was a kid. When we were both kids, because we're the same age. When we were both kids, I just didn't really pay attention to the damn series. But when Children of Dune came out, I watched that whole thing. I paid attention to that one. So, Non-Critic Dustin wants me to watch Dune. Wasn't that into it. I was more into Children of Dune. So this is going to be interesting, the next critique that we do. So just keep that in mind. Keep that in mind.
Did you like Children of Dune?
I did.
You'll probably like this. I didn't really like Children of Dune, but if you there's similar. The reason I didn't like Children of Dune is because they took two books and compressed it into one miniseries.
Okay.
This is one book, so you'll probably like it, I think. If you can get through the first part, like I said, that's the rough part. But anyway, hopefully we talk about Dune next week, and maybe we'll do one on David Lynch's Dune someday, but probably not. So let's do the send-off, unless you have anything final you want to say about Oldboy.
Like I said, with Oldboy, I was I was intrigued about it. Like I said, it just was off a whim with one of my other good friends telling me, hey, there's a movie called Oldboy. It's a very good movie, very interesting, and it's just word of mouth. Like that was solely word of mouth that made me want to see it because it's actually one of my good friends, aside from Non Critic Dustin, that I'm just like, oh, you know what? If he likes it, I will probably like it. So once I watched the movie, I was hooked because I was shocked. That's all. I didn't hear anything aside from Non Critic Dustin hearing everything about it. I didn't hear nothing about it except, hey, this is an interesting movie. You gotta watch it. And I even asked actually the question, what is it about? He said, just watch it. You'll find out.
So watch it and you'll find out.
So the difference from me not knowing shit about it to Non Critic Dustin knowing a lot about it because everybody told him, it's a big difference in how you're gonna perceive the movie, how you're gonna like the movie. So, but for me, it was a really, really good movie, really shocking movie for me. So when I saw the remake, wasn't as impacted as the first. I was kind of disappointed.
Would you recommend the remake to people?
No. I would recommend them see the first. I would recommend the first. I would recommend them see the original movie, and then they can go off that and watch the remake. But I would recommend the original movie, because it had a stronger impact, a stronger feel for me, anyways.
Alrighty then, I think we've rambled on long enough. I guess we should call it quits.
But again, we are not going to announce. Well, we kind of announced it. It's probably going to happen next week. Dune, the miniseries Dune. It probably will happen unless we decide to change. But
if something else comes to mind that might be more your style, maybe then I'll suggest that. But I don't know. Yeah. Probably the reason I want to talk about Dune is because there's a documentary coming out called, and I'm going to mispronounce it, but it's called Jodorowsky's Dune. Alejandro Jodorowsky, who is a very surrealist filmmaker who made a film called The Holy Mountain. That's probably his most well-known movie. Okay. Very infamous. He was going to make a big, like, fucking 12-hour version of Dune with all these really weird shit in it, and there's a documentary about it coming out, and that's what sparked my interest, because it sort of made Dune relevant again. But anyway.
Okay. Well, till next time, till next week, which is, like I said, probably going to be talking about the miniseries Dune, unless we change.
He's hoping I change, but no, probably not going to do it.
I'm hoping, but if not, I will watch it and I will give my best critique as usual. But until then, I am Non Critic Will, and this is
Non Critic Dustin.
And we still don't have a sign off, but we will come up with one very soon, I promise you. So until then, bye.